The MSU Office of Regulatory Affairs is currently migrating regulatory training and users to an updated system. The new LMS is missing required report functionality, and we're looking for help to fix this problem. Specifically, ORA has the need to create SABA reports for our new LMS that function by alternate manager. SABA has a suite of built-in reports that work by a user's primary manager assignment, but not alternate manager. In SABA, each person record has a primary manager and potentially multiple alternate managers. So let me show you here. If we go into the people administration, and I'm going to look up myself, and I'm going to pull up my person record here. And this is just basically our learner database that's in the system. So each user who logs in gets one of these. You can see the manager field here is basically, it's a one-to-one relationship. You can have one primary manager in the system. The reason it's blank is we're not using it because we have we have a requirement for person records to have multiple potential managers. So you can see down here where it says alternate managers, and in this system, this is one of our test systems, I have a bunch of different people assigned to be my alternate manager. We need our reports in the system to work based on alternate managers, not primary manager. So here's what we need. We're going to ask for 2 reports to be created. The first one we're going to call certifications by alternate manager, and it will simply cycle through the system. It will discover any person record who is set with an isManager flag, and it's basically this manager access flag gets set anytime a person record is assigned an alternate team member. So we're going to cycle through, we're going to find all those people. Once we find one of those, we're going to dump them to this report, and they're going to show up right here as an alternate manager. And then for that manager, the report is going to display each person that is on their team, each person that they are assigned as the alternate manager of. And then for each person that shows up on that report as a learning user, we're going to display their certifications. Alright, and then once we get their certification, there's data that comes along with that. For instance, this acquired date here, the due date, training needed. Actually, training needed is a field that there'll need to be some calculation on, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's something that can, happen another time. So you see here on the sample report, it finds John Doe, and for John Doe we have Jane Smith, Jose Carl, Betty Johnson, Doug Pham. For Jane Doe, we have these users and these certifications, and it's just going to cycle through each one of them. Now the second report is going to work by department, and it's just going to run, there won't be a selection for every department in the system, and here's a department name. It's going to go through and find every it's going to have the alternate manager now. So basically it's going to say, okay, here's a department. The department is Environmental Health and Safety. And now it's going to look for alternate managers in the system. So they're basically going to have this manager access flag checked. So if that is checked, and if their department code matches, which is stored here in our custom fields, and that's a one-to-one relationship, although there's up to 3 different departments per user record that can be possible. When you run into those 2 scenarios, you're going to put that on the report. So for John Doe, what we're saying here is we see that this person is an alternate manager, and he is in the Environmental Health and Safety Department. And now we're going to show, here's all their learning users. So here's a person record that we found who John Doe is the alternate manager for. And then for Jane Smith, now we're going to display her certifications, and then grab some data off the certification, the acquired date, due date, and that type of thing. And then we're just going to cycle through. So now that we've found basically a match in this Environmental Health and Safety and John Doe, now what we're doing here is we say, okay, we see Jane Smith as a manager out there. She also is part of this department. Okay, now find all of her users that have that are under Jane Smith, and then display all their certifications and their acquired dates and all that. So those are the 2 reports we're looking for. Okay, so here are some of the resources that we have available. Number 1 resource is going to be the data dictionary. This is all in a big PDF from the manufacturer of the software, Saba. And so here is the CMT person record, just an example. And they basically go through and tell you, all the fields that are in there for it, and some other information, the data type, a description of the field, and any kind of references that it makes. There's also the so that the person record database is obviously going to be important. So the accountability table is going to be important too, because this is where all of the alternate manager data is stored. So you can see here where it says accountable to and is accountable. These are the two main fields. So accountable to is the person, and is accountable. I'm sorry, accountable to is the alternate manager, and is accountable is the person that is accountable to that manager. And here, if we go into the tables, you can see here's the accountability to actually, let me go into the CMT person record thing here first. Oops. There it is right there. Okay, so we can see here that basically what we're doing is, here's the person record database, and this is looking at the data, and you can see here's our custom fields. This is where we're storing the department right here in these. This is where we're storing internal identifier. Here's the ZPID, APID. These are proprietary MSU IDs. And then we have their username, first name, last name, internal person number, and let's see, there's their location ID. We're going to need that in some of the reports. And then that is pretty much it in here. If we look at the accountability table, this is a pretty simple table. It basically just stores any alternate manager relationships. So here's where we have the accountable to. This is the manager ID, internal ID, and then this is the person that that is the managed person or is accountable. So we have the data dictionary, we have access to the database, and then we also have a help file that Saba gives us that shows a lot of information about the reports that are in there. If Crystal Reports, for instance, is the tool that we decide to use, then you can see here there's a bunch of formula data down here that might come into play, that might be helpful. And that's all online actually on this Saba Help website.